The financial views and opinions expressed by the host and guests on this program do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of 1077 The Bronx, Rider University, or Certified Wealth Management and Investment. The material discussed is not designed to provide the listeners with individual financial, legal, or tax advice.
Show me the money!
Where's my money, man?
Here comes the money!
Here we go.
It's time to grow your bank as 1077 The Bronx presents Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker, a certified financial planner professional with certified wealth management and investment. Kurt and his team of financial guests will help you turn those singles into seas of green and plan your financial future accordingly. Now here's your money managing host for the hour, Kurt Baker.
Are you aware of the importance of a great headshot in your business and corporate life? High-quality headshot photos serve as windows through which potential investors and employers can examine not only your company, but also you. These are the first places where your brand can make an impression. Did you know that corporate headshots are critical for presenting the best possible image for you and your company on various social media platforms like LinkedIn? Jack Turkel, an award-winning expert in photography and one of the most in-demand photographers, is here to talk about how important it is to put your best face forward. Get rid of those old photos and send the right energy out with images you'll be excited to share. All right, Jack Turkel, right?
Yep, that's it. Got it right.
All right, good. Well, man, this is awesome. I know we met at an event. I know you've got a little bit of a history behind how you got into this. If you don't mind giving us, because you've got quite an experience level here. So before you kind of went out on your own and doing it direct for us.
It all started back in the 40s. No.
Back in the 40s? And they had the,
No.
You had the little hood over, you threw the thing over your head. And
I did start with the old view cameras with the cloth over my head, definitely.
Okay.
I mean, it literally started when I found an old 35mm camera in my high school guidance counselor's office. And I just took to it immediately. And
Wow.
She let me borrow it, and I found this initial attraction to finding things that are just not normally seen by, just walking around, just taking those moments to see things in a different way. And I started taking pictures and ended up becoming the photographer for the yearbook.
Oh, there you go. That's a good start, right?
Took telecommunications and video and photography in college, and then ended up getting a job at a studio in Princeton. And was there for many, many, many years. Worked in the lab and worked up into the photography studio and ended up managing the studio. And it was in Princeton, so I did a lot of work for Princeton University and a lot of corporations around the Princeton area. So that was the basic start.
Right.
And ended up going into different other audiovisual companies for a couple of years here or there, and then landed my biggest job as the manager of the photography studio at Bristol Myers Squibb.
There you go.
And that was for a while too, and that's where I made a lot of connections, and I've really fine-tuned everything that I've taught myself and learned along the way. Traveled the country, photographing people and CEOs and drug launches and everything else that goes along with it. So that was my main thing into it. And then this was up into the mid 2000s, 2007, I think, and it was one of those times where major companies were just kind of literally getting rid of
Right.
old departments.
Yeah.
So I found myself on the chopping block along with 80% of the staff of the creative department, and
Okay.
It ended up leading me into deciding, what, I'm doing my own thing.
No, that's good. Yeah, no, I'm familiar with that. My wife used to work at Merrill Lynch, and it was like, they insource, they outsource, they insource, they outsource. So you were in one of those, time to try to outsource all of this good stuff.
Oh.
Now, I remember, I've seen one photo you have at your home, which was really cool, because I grew up in the space program.
Yes, we talked about that, yes.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that photo? Because that's a well-known photo of you standing there on the, where the crawler is for the... Remember?
I'm not sure.
Where all the
which one.
photographers are standing there?
Yeah. On the last launch of the space shuttle,
Right.
and I managed to be part of a group of people that was there for the last launch as part of the press photographer.
Uh-huh.
And we were at the perimeter of the launch pad. There's a specific area around the launch pad. And I ended up being there with about a dozen other photographers. I'm talking National Geographic, New York Times, everything. And here I
Right.
am in the middle of this, like pinching myself, taking my pictures. And I noticed another photographer that went down the hill and took a picture of this line of photographers taking a picture of the shuttle. And I saw it in, I don't know if it was National Geographic or where I saw it, but I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, there's me.
Right.
So there's this interesting historical photo of this last launch of the photographers lined up, and there I am.
That's really cool, though, that the photographers were getting photographs of the last launch of the shuttle. And that's cool, because most people they would recognize, they don't think of, they can't remember now, they would definitely recognize what they saw, because it's been everywhere, this photo.
Yeah.
It was just really cool.
I know. I actually got in touch with the photographer, and we had a nice conversation about it. Yeah, that was great. I mean, I love doing that sort of thing. When I I got involved in doing that and going for launches and being part of that. I grew up in the space age. I grew up the year NASA was formed. So
yeah.
That was
that is cool. So you've got quite a diverse background as far as how you got into this. So then so I know you got all kinds of great stories. I'm sure you can tell us about your career. So kind of tell us then, once you left BMS, then you said, okay, what next? You go. A lot of times people are like, okay, well, I know I have this talent. Now what?
Well, I mean, I had a large family room that I was going to be reclaiming because my son was moving out, and I'm like, I don't need this family room anymore. So it was a whole addition, and I ended up converting it into a full-fledged studio.
Okay.
With what would have been a dark room, but didn't need one because we were all going digital. Right. And it became what is now Jack J Digital, which is the name of my studio company.
Right.
And it's filled with equipment, and I do pretty much everything I do there, except for when I go on location. So, and it's suiting me perfectly for what I need to do. I mean, I don't do gigantic shoots. I do kind of commercial stuff,
right?
Which can fit, in the studio.
Okay. So now that you got your studio set up, what happened next? So no dark room, but you have a studio.
I have a studio, and now it's just a matter of, like any small business, is financially getting the equipment that I need, financially backing up what I needed to get it started, finding clients, using the names that I knew from the people that I've worked with in the past. And I got a decent handful of large clients, because not only did I do photography back then when I first started, I was doing a lot of graphic design and a lot of PowerPoint presentation, because I used to do, and I still do to this point, very high-end PowerPoint presentations for corporate use that uses animations and sound effects and everything that can go into it. And so there's always a clientele that I was able to do that for either other pharmaceutical companies or local companies. It just opened the door to keep the money coming in.
Right.
And then
so revenue first, obviously. So you got to buy some equipment. You get the revenue coming in, so that's good. So you ended up deciding to really kind of narrow and focus in as a specialty, the headshot. So most of us are like, I need a headshot. They begrudgingly go get one somewhere, or have somebody take literally a passport photo kind of thing. let's just put it up there. Or they have one like, down at the beach having a good time with a family, and they put that on their LinkedIn page. So you want to tell us a little bit about why it's important, and then why some of the things that are out there aren't necessarily going to work into their best interests.
Well, I mean, I had done literally hundreds and hundreds of portraits when I was working in corporate. And portrait, they can be well lit and nice, but there's something missing. It's just it can be very generic. It can be technically good, but there's always something missing, because there's not a lot of other things that go into making it you. It's just a very generic, clean portrait. And for most people, that can be fine. The headshot is more of a personal connection to not what you look like, but who you are, and your persona, and working at the shot to allow you to come across in the way you want to come across, and do you want to show you want to be authentic, and you want to show this sense of approachability, and a strong feeling as well. It depends on what you're trying to show to your clients. So there's a very particular style that I've learned through the crew that I work with, and a very specific type of lighting, and a process from start to finish that gets you shots that, as one of my taglines says, will allow you to see yourself for the first time.
Right.
Because it does. I work at it to the point where when we're done with the shoot, there's a review process, and we narrow it down to the specific things that I help fine tune through what I call, expression coaching.
Expression coaching. Okay.
There's a very specific type of coaching that allows for a different type of attitude to emanate in the picture, and a posture and a smile. There's no more say cheese, click 10 times, and see you later. This is
okay.
I want to get to know the person. I want to get to understand what is it that they want to show in this image, and it's so far so good.
Right.
I haven't had one complaint yet about
That's
any
good.
photograph. So
No, you do a great job. I know we had coffee one morning, and I come back, I look at your studio, and next thing I know, you're taking my photo.
of course,
I was like, wait a minute, how did this happen?
I know. I take my opportunities when I can. Sure.
No, you did a great job, because I know you spent some time on that, really kind of trying to set some up, and I know it's really important. So maybe you could take us through some of those steps. We're about to take a quick break, but some of the steps, like how to really kind of narrow it down to like what kind of a photo you might want in the different types of professions, different types of people, and what kind of image they may want to portray. You're listening to Master Your Finances. We will be right back.
Yeah, you've got loads of money, but it's all about how you manage it. Let's get back to learning how to grow your green with Kurt Baker of Certified Wealth Management and Investment, only on Master Your Finances.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finances. I am here with Jack Turkel, and we're talking photography, and you have a very particular style. I guess, first of all, most people don't realize the importance of having a proper headshot done, especially when you're trying to promote yourself. And all of us are a little bit different, right? So I'm a private wealth manager. That's one person, right? But if I own, I don't know, if I'm a hockey coach or something, I mean, that's a whole totally different like persona necessarily. I mean, I don't know, but there's going to be a different image, right? Based on what you do and what you're personally trying to do. So I guess you have the profession, right? And then I guess you have the individual, because we're all different, right? In my profession, we're all a little bit different. We all have different personalities, right? And so, so how do you kind of walk through that? Because you mentioned things like the review process and then expression coaching and things like that. So what actually is that, and how do you do it?
Well, I mean, the process starts as soon as they come into my studio. I have a gallery next to the studio, so they can see my fine art stuff. We start a conversation. I want to talk. I want to talk about what they do, what they're trying to accomplish. My goal initially is just to sit down and have a friendly conversation and understand what is exactly that you need this photograph for, and what is it that you're going to need to do with it. Once I have that in mind, we sit in the studio for a little bit. I explain the process, and then we start shooting. And technically, it's very specific because like I said, I have a very specific lighting setup, but I have a large screen monitor that's connected to my laptop, and the laptop is tethered to my camera. So as I'm setting up the lighting, and as I'm explaining to whoever's in front of the lighting what to do, I'm seeing exactly what's happening, and I'm making adjustments on the fly. The person is seeing the final shots as it's popping up on the screen, if they want to, and I'm looking at the shots beforehand. And I'm able to zoom in and see, is there enough light in the eyes? Is the shadows falling in the right place? Are the collars on both sides even? Is the collar gap right? Is the chin properly positioned? I have a list of things that I have to go through to keep this consistent, quality going. So I'll do that list, and I'm watching it on the screen as I'm doing it, and I'm making my minor adjustments. And then when I'm ready to go, I will say, "Hey, we're ready. I'm happy with where we are." And then the shooting starts.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point, because I know when I take photographs, somebody taught me this a long time ago, and I think you actually pointed out to me when we did this. Is like when you're looking forward, it's like you bring your head like straight forward, and it feels really weird. But it fixes like your chin.
Yeah,
right?
It cleans up your chin line.
I'm a little older, so I got all this extra stuff going on here.
Yeah, I do too. I know.
Producer's laughing. She's much less younger than us. Right, Danielle?
Well, that's part of my.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's part of my posture. My posture coaching, if you will, is making sure. There's another thing that I do. It's called the holding the hoagie, or another
holding
word.
The hoagie?
Holding the sub sandwich. It's basically you're standing in front of the camera, and you're holding your hands out to the side like this, as if you're holding a bit long sandwich.
And what does that do?
What it does is it separates your shoulders more. And it gives your posture
Oh,
more of an
that's what they say. Like,
it's more of a
hold
posture
$100 bill
thing.
between your shoulder blades, kind of thing.
Well, not
That's
you
what
don't
they tell
want
us at
that.
the gym.
Yeah, the same concept.
Yeah.
You want to just hold yourself straight,
Right.
And
Because most of us slouch.
most of us
unfortunately.
slouch.
Yeah.
And the angle is important. And if one of the things that I've learned over the times that I do this, when I get my shots looked at by other photographers as we inspect each other's images to help each other.
That's great.
Is we do this all the time. At least once a week we get together and we have a critique. And
Okay. That's got to be brutal when you have your
it can
peers
be.
critiquing you. Because
they
they know what to look for, right?
Yeah, we know exactly, and but it's an incredible amount of knowledge that you learn,
Right.
and it helps. And I'm not afraid to keep learning how to keep perfecting.
Oh,
this,
absolutely.
You know, so I get all this information, and it helps along the way to just keep perfecting it. But all this posture and the lighting, it's I know what to look for, and I go for it, and
Right.
and then we keep shooting and until we're both satisfied. I always suggest having at least 2 different changes of clothing for men,
Okay.
a shirt or tie or jacket. So we could try different things. I usually do a white or gray background, keep it clean for most corporate portfolios, profiles rather.
Right,
You want it clean. And then we're seeing everything as it's shot, and I'll work and keep shooting until I get. And I can shoot 100 shots,
Wow.
and there could be 20 that are worth holding on to. And then the person decides, well, how many of these do I need as a final, in the final purchase? And they can buy 1, they can buy 20. It depends on how many different uses they need
Okay.
it for. I always suggest more than 1 because there's going to be different expressions. Some of them are going to have more of a approachable feeling. Some of them are going to have more of a corporate kind of feel to it.
Right.
You want to have a couple that trade off, And then after everything is said and done, we go to another monitor. I take the same laptop, I connect it to another monitor, and through a specific program that I use, we look through every single shot. And it's easy to just cancel out the ones that are obviously no good.
Right.
Not every shot's going to be obviously perfect. So,
Right.
we delete the ones obviously with our eyes, closed or the expression isn't right, and we just keep narrowing it down. And you're part of that process. I will certainly let you know what I think is best. I've been doing this so many years
Right.
that I can very easily pick out the best shots, and it's 99% of the time it's the client agrees with me.
Okay.
So, but I want the person, whoever I'm photographing, to be part of that decision.
Right.
And then those are chosen, and the ones that are purchased are then taken up to my other office and brought into other programs, and then I retouch them to perfection. Not over. I
Okay.
mean, you can over retouch. The quality of the image is good enough where there's not a crazy amount of retouching to do. This basic little here or there. There's certain things that I do to kind of brighten parts of the face and to obviously minimize. I don't take away, let's say, people that have lines or wrinkles.
Right.
But I soften them.
Right.
Any blemishes that need to be removed. But I always ask the person,
Right.
do you want these to be there? Is this part of who you want to see in your image? And if they want them there, of course I go by their
Right.
wishes. But there's always a softening, a general softening and cleaning up of just things that just have a certain quality of color theory and light. It's very important to get the color right, because if the color is not right,
Right.
you can have a great shot and the color's off. So skin tone is very important.
Is it more difficult? I know you've done both film and digital photography, so I know some things. I remember when, like, my wife switched. She was doing in school. She did like photography with a regular camera, film, and then it was a little bit of a transition when you do digital. Isn't it different? Like what you see when you're looking at the film as opposed to like don't you have to like? I don't know. It just seemed like it was. It would look differently to me at least.
There. I mean, film has a certain quality to
Yeah.
it. Okay, digital is better in certain ways,
Right.
and
So what are some of the pros and cons, I guess?
Well,
But-
digital, obviously, the biggest pro is you're bringing it into a program that allows you to change it in any way you
Okay.
want.
Right.
If the color's off, or if sometimes I've had clients where their skin tone is different. It's like their cheeks are redder and their chin is redder, or they got a little blotchiness of skin
Right.
tone. It's my job to kind of even that out.
Right, right.
If they agree to that.
Right.
And that's something you do in digital. You know, I
little
can
bit easier to do
pinpoint
it
a specific, this very specific color in the skin and
Okay.
isolate that, and then remove that and leave everything else
Interesting.
alone. It's a lot, you know, it can be a lot of work, and
Right.
you have to know how to do that. And then, you know, certain ways that certain areas are brightened and emphasized in a way that just cleans it up and makes it just jump out at you.
Yeah.
And you know, in film, you would have to scan it in and then work digitally.
Okay.
You know, you can have that option, but yeah, I mean, once I went to digital, it was like
Because the resolutions are pretty high now, right? Because I know when we originally went to digital, it was kind of like they were inferior to the film because the film was like a piece of
digital
film.
now? Yeah, I've already made your headshot into a billboard already. So
Oh no! Oh my gosh!
no, but it can. I can easily take one of my shots and
I just
blow
had
it up 6
flashes of
feet
"I Love
long.
You, Man." Did you see that movie? "I Love You, Man" with a billboard. It's like, oh my god, what'd you do to me?
No, and the thing is, you don't need the resolution. I mean, yes, the resolution
Right.
is important, but 90% of the time, these headshots are going to be fairly small. And
I
like
know
a
I'm
LinkedIn
constantly have to
profile.
downsize the pixel
Yeah,
size.
you
'Cause
gotta-
it won't
yeah.
fit. It's like
I mean, the stuff that
100
I
by 100
shoot-
pixels. I'm like, well, this thing's like a
Yeah,
73 meg file. It's not going to work.
I mean, out of camera, my image is 60 megs.
There you go. Yeah, I knew they were huge. For the
As a
start.
JPEG, if you know what that is, a JPEG is maybe 5 megs, and that's crazy big.
Right.
You know, and nobody needs that resolution unless you're making huge prints. You
Right.
know, but the quality, you have to start with good quality. You know,
Right.
it's a starting point, and then you just downsize it to whatever's needed. You know, a certain crop. I always give several crops. There's a vertical crop, a square crop if they need it,
Right.
and a certain stylistic type of crop that I've used from the group that I work with that cuts off, and people think that's kind of weird, cuts off the top of the head. But when you see it, you understand.
I have seen that
You
before.
understand, yeah. I mean, some people, it works. It depends on what it is you're using it
Okay.
for. It's just a headshot is focused on your face and your head.
Right.
You don't want too much below the collar. You don't want too much above the collar. And I always give that
You get a
option.
little more of the face, right? The
It's
actual.
all about the face.
Yeah.
It's all about, it's all about that expression in face.
That's awesome. All right, man. You're listening to Master Your Finances. We're going to take a quick break.
We're not just doing this for money. We're doing it for a load of money.
If you want to learn how to make and manage that kind of money, turn the volume up as we get back to Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker of Certified Wealth Management and Investment.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finance. I'm here with Jack Turkel, and we're talking headshots, which honestly, it was one of those things that I knew I should be doing but didn't do until like somebody said, hey, go down here and get a headshot done, right? And first of all, I didn't really even know where to go, frankly, which is interesting. I didn't realize that people actually specialize in this, which was kind of cool. And this is going back a long time, let's just say. I won't give you the dates. Let's just say it's a while. Because as we got on the social media and as you got on like the internet and all this other good stuff, those that remember pre-internet, it started to become more and more important to get this thing on there, right? So now I know you get these large photos. I know you have to make them different sizes, so you do the different, parameters, right? Like tall and square and all those things. But there's also different pixel sizes, right? Based on where you're going to post it. If it's on your little Facebook profile thing, right? That's tiny, right? Those things that like push down way tiny. Other things can be a little bit bigger. Like if you're going to send it to a printer, they probably want a little bit bigger file because they're going to put it on a machine if it's a large enough like photo, right? If you're going to do like you said, the billboard might need a little bit higher resolution, than your profile picture on social media.
Any good professional camera is going to have 20, 30, 40
Right.
megapixels, and that's more than enough for most anything.
So you can hold on to those and have the different sizes, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I hold on to the Masters high res, and the client I never send the high res, and if they request it, I certainly give that to them. But the
Most
high
people don't
res
need
is
it.
way more than anyone actually needs.
Right.
Because a screen on a computer screen, it's 72 dpi,
Right.
as opposed to 300, which is what a high res would be.
Okay.
You're not even seeing it on the screen, so you don't
Right.
need that.
Right.
So you have to compress it in a certain way that holds that quality, but doesn't need all the pixels.
Yeah. Okay, cool. This sounds like the old vector versus. I remember that. I remember learning that, like the different kind of like formats like, oh my God, I can't believe how many there are, right?
Well,
so it's
yeah,
kind of cool.
vector.
We won't get into that. We won't
Yeah,
get
yeah,
into that.
no, that's a
But
whole different
I know
show.
you do other things as well because you got this long history. So obviously we know that headshots are really important. Getting it professionally done, getting it correctly done to basically show who you are in whatever context you want that to be, right? Whether you're a certain profession, an attorney or whatever, or if you're something else, maybe you're I don't know, maybe you do a comedy, stand-up comedy or something for a living. You have different like personas you want to put out there, right?
Well, real estate is a big thing because
There you go.
I'll get
That's huge.
I'll get the local newspaper for my town,
Yeah.
and there's always big spreads of the
huge.
page that has a specific real estate company, and there's like 20 realtors with their pictures on
Right.
it, and they're like all over the place. Some of them are selfies, some of them are like regular
Right.
nice portraits that
Right.
are sufficient for what they think they need, but there's no consistency,
Right.
and some of them is just I would never use. So part of my job is to try to find people who can use the consistency of that sort
Right.
of thing, where you can have 5, 10, 15, 20 people, and they all have that same quality.
Yeah, you would think a
look.
real estate office would be interested in having their.
You would think,
each of the.
yeah.
Of course, some of them are kind of quote self-employed because so they kind of just work there. But it's
Right,
It says this
exactly.
relationship they have going on. But it would be nice to at least encourage a similar format. So the photo, and the other thing I've noticed, frankly, and I'm sure this is every profession, but realtors in particular, I don't know why. It seems like when sometimes you meet them, the photo is very out of date. Let's say.
Yeah.
I'm
and
like,
that's something I have to
I'm
convince
like,
people of.
guys, that doesn't really help you by having something that's not actually accurate. Because if somebody can't recognize you easily from your photo, you probably want to update, and you can do it in a way that's nice. I mean, we all do age, so we have to that's the life, But I think it's more appropriate to match closer to who you are, and whatever image you want to portray, and keep them up to date. So, how often should somebody think about I have a photo? I don't know, I think mine's 4 or 5 years old now, right? So at what point do you say, okay, probably time to update the photo?
I generally go by, you don't want to go any more than 5 years.
Okay, so 5 years is kind of
5
the
years
time
is the absolute max. I
Okay.
usually tell people to revisit their profile pictures at least every 2 years.
Okay.
Because your job may change. You end up wanting something different anyway.
Right.
You don't want to have this. People even make this subconscious note about it's the same picture that's been up there for years.
Right.
What's this person look like now?
Right.
They want to know the authentic person.
Okay.
So you want to revisit it. I mean, again, once a year, I'd say just revisit it and ask yourself, what do I need to kind of represent myself in a different way? Do I need this picture to be improved? Because we all even get tired with our own picture.
Right.
And you get a really good one, then, you may want to stay with it a little longer.
Right.
So, it's, I mean, I've had people, and even in people who I've had people that come to me that want their picture, a headshot for a dating website. And that
Okay.
becomes an important thing too. You want to show your best self,
Right. It's like the peacock. You want to show the best feathers,
Exactly. It's like, so many,
You want to look good.
like I have this one client that's going to be coming in next week. She's a realtor, and her picture is like her standing next to her car. I'm
Right.
like,
It
really?
sounds like a late night commercial.
Yeah, I'm like,
a
what
get
is-
rich quick scheme is
and
what
it-
that sounds like to me.
And it's some far away,
You
It's
can't see
like, it's from like maybe the
I can't even
knees up.
see her. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see what's going on, but
Right.
it's like, no, I don't know who this person is. This is
Right.
just like somebody that took this with their phone,
Right. Right.
So, and I'm gonna when I get these pictures done, I'm gonna use them as a before and after. I'm like, this is what you were using, and this is what you have, and
that's part. I think that might be part of the problem, right? Is that we have these phones that have a pretty high resolution, so that's kind of a plus and a minus. I mean, when you want to take photos, it's great. You get pretty good quality out of them. Mm-hmm. But we want to do something. So why don't you talk a little bit about just taking your own photo with a phone, which is, I guess, fine if you need to. But then the difference between that and an actual professional photograph where you've actually kind of drilled into it and perfected it a little bit.
Well, the main difference is obviously the quality is going to be better,
Right.
And the control of the lighting is going to be better,
Right.
And my technique takes into account the height of the camera. You never want to look down on a person. You always
Right.
want to look slightly below and look slightly up. It gives a more authoritative feel, and a combination with a friendly feel. It makes it for a perfect combination. And then the background. I mean, you're taking with your phone. The angles are going to be off. The color may not be exactly right. And you're not. You just don't have the control.
Right.
I mean, it may be good for the fly if you just want more of a whimsical kind of shot for different things.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Plenty of people are happy with just, hey, this is good enough.
Right.
But if you want to take it to the next level, if you're in a business, if you want to really show yourself in the best light possible, you want to, get shots, as like my other tagline says, I take headshots that turn heads.
Right. So, and I think sometimes people underestimate the value of the branding side. Because you mentioned the branding, right? So what do you want? Literally, a photo of yourself is a big part of your branding, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's like the highlight of any website you're going to have, the highlight of any flyer you may put together. If you put it on having to put it on your business card, if it's on the business card, that's going to everybody.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're like, oh, you spend all this money on the website, you spend all this money on other things, but you're like, well, this is like, and they even spend money on the logo and all the fonts and whatever goes into the site itself. But sometimes people forget that, well, wait a minute, this is you. So that really is kind of important to make sure that looks as best it can.
You're selling yourself as a brand, and the first impression is so important.
Right.
I mean, when you see that picture for the first time, we subconsciously decide right then and there, is this person approachable? Is this person likable? Is this somebody that I want to do business with? We don't even realize it, but we can be judgmental according to the image that we see.
Right.
And we can decide on a particular person we want to work with in certain professions or politics or anything by, I just don't like the way that person looks in that picture. And
Right.
that can be all it needs to decide against or for. So yeah, it's your face is your brand, and
Right.
you want that to be as best as it can be done.
No, you told me, or like, not everybody feels like, well, I can't. Well, I just don't take a good photo.
There's no such thing.
Okay. So how do you address that when somebody says, well, I don't get my picture taken. I don't like my pictures. I don't like this. They complain. They go down to I call it the DMV. I think they call it something else now, but Department of Motor Vehicle. I think it's Motor Vehicle Department or something. I don't know, whatever it's called now. But you go down there and you're like, oh, I hate the photo they do of me, right? So,
Well, yeah. I mean,
I mean, they're constantly complaining about their photo and how they look in their image. Where this one you control, right?
Yeah.
So what do you say to people say, I don't take a good photograph? What do you say to them?
Let me show you that it can be possible. Because
we're all different, right? Our complexions are different. Skin tones are different.
Yeah,
I mean,
glasses,
hair's different.
hair, everything is different.
Beard, no beard. I mean, all kinds of things going on, right? So dark eyes, light eyes.
I know, but there's a way to get around that. There's no magic button. I mean, you still have to do
You
what
don't
I
have the
do.
perfect photo button on your camera?
No, that's the next model upcoming.
Okay, I like that.
I get to so many people that come in and go, and for people who have a weight problem, will always ask me, "Where's the button to make me thinner?"
Right.
I get, you know how many times I get that line.
Okay,
and
that's fine.
my answer is usually, well, first of all, it's headshot, so
Right.
But it's like you want to be you, but you
Correct.
want to be the best version of you.
Correct. I agree.
So. And I keep working at it until you are happy and satisfied
Right.
with what you see.
Yeah.
And I can take weight off, your face. I can do any kind of magical thing you want,
Right.
but you don't want that.
Right.
You want the authenticity is important, and
It's like all the glamour magazines. They find out later on that the people don't actually look like what you see on the photo.
Oh,
on the
no.
cover, you're like, wow, how does he or she do that? You're like, well, it's actually not completely real.
it's not. There's a lot,
It's
a lot
a
of
little bit of
fakery.
fake going on here.
A lot
So
of fakery. And now
don't
it's
try
going
to
into-
mimic them because you're never going to look exactly like them because they're a photograph, all right?
I know.
But
I know.
We're gonna
But
get into some other things you do. You're listening to Master Your Finance. We're gonna take another quick break.
Do you want to prevent this from happening to you?
And it's gone. It's all gone.
Listen closely as we now return to Master Your Finances with Kurt Baker of Certified Wealth Management and Investment.
Welcome back. You're listening to Master Your Finance. I'm here with Jack Turkel, and we're talking headshots. And I honestly didn't realize quite how so much was going on with the headshots. I know I got one before I visited you, and they kind of moved me around, did this, did that. But you were actually a little more specific. It was kind of interesting, the interaction that we had. The lighting and the positioning and all this other good stuff, which was kind of cool. But that's important for branding, like your number one thing, even above like probably your logo if you have like a personal business, especially like a realtor. I think it's huge because they tend to put those out everywhere. But a lot of other professionals, I know advisors like myself, wealth managers, they need the same kind of thing. So certain professions, you definitely want to make sure it's done correctly. But you do some other things as well. I know you have quite a career. So you want to tell us a little about some of the other things and how that's kind of different from what you're doing right now?
I mean, in general, after I left corporate, I did a lot of commercial work. You know, a lot of companies that are in electronics and food and different things, where I would bring in different components and stuff, and I'd combined it in different ways and light it in certain ways for their brochures and their websites. And then I got connected to a wonderful chef, an Indian chef. That started me on that path of doing more and more professional food photography, and I did that for several years until COVID hit, and that changed things a little bit. But I ended up doing like 5 cookbooks, and had an opportunity to my studio and kitchen were filled with food for months doing some of these books, and I got to eat a lot of it, so it was kind of a win-win.
So I know food. I've heard. At least this is what I read. Like sometimes when you see these things on like television, frankly, what surprises me is like I'll see a certain like hamburger on television, then when you go see it in the store, it's like,
oh gosh,
that doesn't look anything like that, does it?
Well,
but I know photographing food is a little bit tricky, right? Because sometimes they tell me they use like, this is not actually, I don't know what the components are, but some of the items are not actually real. They have to put in other things sometimes because the heat of the lights will like melt it. Like if you try to take a photograph of, I guess, of ice cream, I'm going to make one up. I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, it's like by the time you get it's positioned, the ice cream's starting to melt already.
Here's a trade secret. Ice cream is mashed potatoes.
Ah, there you go. See,
with colored dye in it. Yeah.
Okay.
That's one of the things.
Okay.
But fortunately, the chef that I worked with, his name was Hari Nayak, and he was more on, I don't want my stuff to be affected in an unnatural way. I wanted to look as natural as possible without me doing anything to it.
Wow.
Which is great because I was able to eat a lot of it too.
There you go.
I'm like, are we done? Are we done with this shot? On to the next one?
Okay. Now for sure, right? You know it all.
I've eaten an amazing amount of variety of foods.
There you go.
But yeah, it was, there's a lot of different little techniques. I mean, Elmer's glue and for milk in a cereal bowl.
Okay, Elmer's glue. Yeah, you don't want to have that afterwards.
No,
you might have some people on set that were very upset that they took a bite out of your cereal after the shot was after the photo shoot was over.
If you want to
shoot, this is awful cereal.
If you want to shoot a cooked turkey, you shoot a barely cooked turkey and cover it with shoe polish.
Shoe polish.
The right color shoe polish. You paint it on, and it just looks like it's perfectly browned.
Okay.
And
can we do that during Thanksgiving, or are they going to get upset?
No, you don't want to do that during Thanksgiving. So that's some of the main things. And when I would shoot, like there was a couple times I had to shoot like burgers. And the burger is built from a layer up with the perfect amount and quality of each piece.
Right.
Where it's perfectly layered and sprinkled with.
Takes less than 35 seconds to make the whole thing. I mean, it takes more than that, I guess, when you're actually photographing.
Yeah.
Excuse me, the other way around.
Yes, definitely takes some time. And then you use glycerin, glycerin liquid, to spray on the lettuce and stuff, so it sticks. Or on the outside of glasses, so it sticks. Otherwise, it just all drips down.
Interesting.
So little tricks like that. But it was a great. I had a lot of those shots.
I know. I saw they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
I know. Makes you hungry when you look at this stuff.
Yeah. Well, that was my goal.
It definitely worked.
If your mouth is watering, I did my job. Is what I used to market it as. So, COVID kind of took that away, and I wanted it to kind of focus on other things. I still do food when it comes up, but I'm putting a lot of my effort into perfecting this headshot thing.
Okay. Well, that's really awesome. So I know you got a lot of photography stories you can tell us, right?
Yeah. I mean, I could be here for an hour.
I know you can.
I know. I mean, photographing, my son and I climbed Mount Fuji.
That's cool.
And I had an amazing opportunity as just a fine art photographer when I'm not trying to do my studio stuff and do client-based stuff. I'm out there just photographing, the beauty of the world.
Right.
And, my wife and I travel as much as we can. And she's used to me kind of staying back and going, hold on, let me get this
So
shot.
do you see the world through a camera lens?
More
no
so
matter
than,
what you're doing, you're walking around like, oh, that'd be a nice picture. Oh, that'd be a nice
know.
picture. Oh, that'd be a nice picture.
And it always fascinates me because I look in the camera and it's like I question, what is it in my brain that tells me, okay, I have to click this. I mean, it's something particular or something that's coming from outside to my brain, or I don't know exactly how to put it. But there's something that happens in the composition and the color and the positions of things that I'm seeing that allows me to come up with that conclusion that this is what's going to be what I termed wall-worthy.
Right. Wall-worthy.
You know?
Okay.
Wall-worthy. You know, where you take that shot, it's like, I know this is going to be a good shot. And
Right.
I strive for finding those things. So I have a whole portfolio of kind of interesting, eclectic things of, you know, the stuff, all the travels that I've done.
So what are some of your most interesting interactions you've had with different people when you're taking your photos with them? Like, 'cause I know you were out and about quite a bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, going back to the NASA days when I photographed the space shuttle, I would bump into people who I bumped into this guy. I went to this. I had the opportunity to take the bus of press photographers to this location where the astronauts actually watched the launch from.
Okay.
And there was a guy there that had been there since the early '60s.
Okay.
And worked on the Mercury project.
Wow. That's going
And
back.
I ended up
John
just
Glenn.
having an amazing conversation with him, took pictures, I videotaped him talking to me, and I got to meet some of the astronauts and taking pictures of them and knew some of them, but it was just kind of cool because I'm a kind of a, bit of a science space nerd when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I loved interacting with those people, and because I was there photographing the very first launch of the shuttle in 1981,
Okay.
which was, I was a young, kid, and just having that opportunity and standing there and seeing that behemoth of a rocket
Right.
up close and personal was something I never imagined as this kid from Brooklyn never seeing,
Right.
And then I was there at the very last launch.
Right. And
So-
can you tell me the story about your
Yeah.
tell a story?
So I decided because I was able to get to the last launch, I was going to wear my press credential badge from the first launch.
Uh-huh.
So I had that next to my pass from the last launch, and the director of the astronaut group or whatever the heck her name was, I can't remember her position. She saw this and she's like, and she remembered me from the other time. She's
Wow,
Jack, come
that's
with
cool.
me. And she took me into the astronaut's office, and I was like sitting there talking to all these astronauts, and they're all like, they were impressed that I had
Sure.
been there from the very beginning and did the first.
They were probably all in training and stuff, or maybe they weren't even that far along, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
astronauts were probably just thinking, I'd like to be an astronaut someday, and you were actually there meeting some of the
I
early
know.
astronauts.
Mike Massimino, who was one of the guys who fixed the Hubble, he was
Right.
one of those top guys. I remembered him because he's just a really cool guy. I kind of connected with him, and I said, Mike, how you doing? You're like my favorite astronaut. I was like little starstruck, and he's like, wow, you actually know who I am. And so I got these pictures of us together and stuff, and sent it to him, and it was kind of cool. But yeah, I did that, and just travels to different areas of the world. I've been to Morocco and
Right.
the Yucatan, and when I can, I do
Right,
that.
right,
And
right.
I got a ton of stuff on my hard drive that my son constantly complains, like, Dad, you got millions of shots on your hard drive, but you got to get them out there. Nobody sees them.
Right.
I got to go through them and get some of them out there. And then I go in some, I have some shots at the Ellerslie Museum in Trenton.
Okay, the museum. Wow.
The museum,
Nice.
museum purchased one of my shots. I did a series of shots when Trenton High School was being demolished.
Right.
And I just decided to myself, I said, I got to do a documentary.
Yeah, that was a
about this.
historic building back then.
Yeah,
That was a
yeah.
pretty amazing building when it was first built.
It was,
Yeah.
but it needed to be redone.
Right,
So I
right.
had spent a week with the students, walked around school, took pictures of the classrooms, the kids, did a whole documentary, had a show about it,
Oh, that's great.
and that was really satisfying. And
Okay.
and then the museum bought one of those shots, so that's
So now like part of permanent history of Trenton. That's cool.
Permanent,
That's awesome.
history,
Yeah. So what's next now as far as yourself and photography in general? What do you see happening going ahead from here?
Well, this is I'm putting everything into perfecting what I'm doing right now,
Right.
and just getting the word out there that it makes a difference
Right.
to do it right.
Right.
and to think about what a difference it can make if it's done with the quality that it can be done.
And they can see some of your shots. How can they see some of the shots you've done on your site there?
Right now, my website, which is always a work in progress, is basically the name of my studio, which is jackjdigital.com. And it's JCKJAY, not just the letter J.
Right.
And they'll see a dozen or so shots there. I'm always changing them and putting different shots up there. And you can find my same shots and new shots on Instagram as well.
Cool. All right.
Well,
Jack, it's been amazing. Here with Jack Turkel, we learned a lot about headshots, the importance. It's a big part of your branding. You are your image, the first part of your image, right? Even before you do your logo and all the other stuff. So it's really important to get it right and make sure it really emulates who you are and what image you want to portray. Thanks again, Jack, for coming on.
You're welcome.
You're listening to Master Your Finances.
That's all for today's episode of Master Your Finances. Miss Kurt Baker's biggest money managing tip or even a full episode? Head on over to masteryourfinances.us or 1077thebronx.com/masteryourfinances. Look for Master Your Finances on Anchor, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. We'll see you next time only on 1077 The Bronx.